the James Cagney boardroom is where we're located here.
Is that what this is called?
Yeah, this is the boardroom where the Screen Actors Guild Board of Directors meets.
Where we were?
Yes, you came down a couple of times.
What's the name of the theater?
Which theater?
Do they have a name for this?
The James Cagney boardroom.
This is a boardroom?
This is a boardroom. You know, don't be fooled by the faces you see out here. You know, if you put in desks and other actors that are, well, never mind, it kind of looks the same. But
Did you tell him I played Pope John?
I didn't get to that one. Now, what do you want to tell me about?
I know you said Al Capone, but I've got to say Pope John, and Al Capone said they don't fool around with me. I get you one way or the other.
Yeah, there you go.
I either break your legs or have you excommunicated.
There you go. Get them in this life or the next.
All right, what are we doing?
Well, we're just going to have a conversation. That's what it's called, right?
Oh, all right.
Yeah. I want to start things off a little bit differently than we've done on some of these other ones
tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I have my work cut out for me tonight, I can tell. Tonight is the 57th anniversary of D-Day. You served during World War II in the Navy. I read somewhere that you felt that the time that you spent in the Navy actually helped prepare you to be an actor. Do you remember making a comment like that?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us something about that?
No.
Not a thing. You're killing me, man.
Well, what happened was I had a home that was destroyed by alcohol, so when I was about 16 and a half, I went looking for my mother, who had disappeared for a week or two, and I found her, and I literally, physically forced her. I had her arm up behind her back, and she was late. She didn't know she was drunk. To sign this piece of paper that said I was 17 and I could get in the Navy. And that's a scene I wouldn't want to do again. I mean, both of us standing there, my mother lying there, and both of us crying, but something told me I had to get away or I was going to be in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. You know. In fact, a lot of kids in my neighborhood got in a lot of trouble legally. Anyway, so she signed it, and I ran all the way to New York to the Navy. And a lot of times I have young actors come up to me, and they said, well, you know, what should I? I said, how old are you? They said, I'm 19. I said, join the Merchant Marine for a year. And they look at me like I'm an idiot, which is possible. Anyway, why? Because my time in the Navy, I learned different cultures, different peoples, different accents, different ways of thinking, different colors, different skins, countries, towns, cities. And in the Merchant Marine, I don't expect you to do 4 years. That was a war then. But that's a good place because I didn't realize until after a while, I think the first time I had to do a Southern accent, I started talking like that. I said, I don't care. You tell him what I said. And I said, Jesus, there was a friend of mine aboard the ship named King, and that's the way he talked. I don't care what the goddamn captain said. And so by osmosis, you got these things. Also, unfortunately, that experience taught you some other things which helped your emotional reservoir, so to speak. I mean, I saw people killed, and I saw both sides killed, the Japanese and the Americans. And I'm sure that helps you sometimes emotionally in certain kind of scenes, but that's not I don't recommend that. And for the ladies, I say you volunteer for an emergency room. You'll find out pretty quick what life's about. Not only the people who come in, but the relatives. You'll see behavior like you won't see it anyplace else because you're in the middle of shock, pain, drama, fear, and loss of hope. I don't know if you've ever faced loss of hope, but that is one of the most icy pains in the world. I remember once, you get used to me, I talk in relative circles of insanity. I was invited, there was a famous judge in New York named Judge Leibowitz, Samuel Leibowitz. He was a great trial lawyer, and he became one of the toughest judges. And I won an award years and years ago, which I think was the Sylvania Award for television, which I was proud of because he was one of the judges. Raymond Loewy, the famous designer, was a judge. And another person had nothing to do with show business, nothing. And I met him at the dinner, and Leibowitz said to me, "You ever see a murder trial?" I said, "No, I don't." "You want to see one?" Well, my first reaction was, yeah, but then I said, Jesus, I don't know. I'm sitting there in the middle of somebody's life. I mean, and of course, Leibowitz, who was tough as nails and had done so many cases, he said, "You'll come, you'll watch." And when Leibowitz says, "You'll come, you watch," I came, I watched, you know. Getting back to Hopeless, they were trying to solve, I hope you got about 4 hours here, but they were trying to connect a guy to a crime that happened 7 years ago. And finally, the defending attorney said, "Listen, I want to bring his partner, who they captured 7 years ago from Sing Sing, to testify." Now, I didn't know, and I've never seen this in a movie. We haven't touched what happens in a murder trial. Leibowitz suddenly says, "Clear the courtroom." I started to leave. He says, "No, Roger, you'll see, this will be interesting. You'll watch this." You know. And they bring the defense attorney, who was a judge himself, with the defendant. And Leibowitz leans over and says to them, "What are you doing?" to the defending attorney. "You bring that guy in here, there'll be an onus about him, they'll convict your guy so fast. You want to know what the hell with you? You're bringing a guy from Sing Sing, for Christ's sake. Sing Sing means criminal, robbery, murder, what have you. And you're going to bring him in to testify for this guy when this guy and he did a crime 7 years ago? He walks through that door, you're going to lose your case." Now, that's when I found out how the justice system really works. Because we don't know what goes on really in a courtroom. You know. And he says, "Well, I like to bring him in." I said, "Listen, Judge," he said, "you can bring him in if you want to, go ahead." And that's another thing I learned, the democracy of a system. He says, "I think you're a goddamn idiot if you bring him in, but you have the right to bring him in." Okay, bring him in. Well, this guy came through the door the next day. His pants were about 4 inches too short, the jacket. And I said, "What's bothering me about this man?" Because when he went behind me, I went like that. See, I believe in the instincts before the intellect. And I was frightened. And I studied him and I watched him. Now they take up recorded evidence he gave 7 years, notarized 7 years ago. And they said, "Now, did you say so and so and so and so and so and so?" "Yeah, I never said that." And the prosecuting says, "According to this notarized document, you said." And he went through 3/4 of an hour and denied a notarized document that was accurate as you could get. Now, they leave. I hope you like stories, because anyway, they leave. There's lunchtime, and Leibowitz invites me to this chamber. This is another thing that I learned a great deal as an actor about the law. Got on the phone and called the Attorney General of New York. And he said, "I got a thing here, a guy who I know is guilty. This guy's a shit from way back. But I got to give him a fair trial, and this is what's happening, and I want your advice." And I was very impressed with how hard this judge worked for a fair trial. I mean, you knew this guy was no good. He said, this guy, I remember when they read the record, robbed a woman of 68 years old. Oh, this is what was wonderful. Leibowitz sits there and says, got his record, says, 68 years old woman you beat up. 54, 72. You're a gem, aren't you? And boy, he chilled them with it. He said, well, let's see what other goodies we have. Oh, it was wonderful. You never hear this dialogue. Of course, Leibowitz is extraordinary. Anyway, the point was this guy couldn't care less. And he said, Your Honor, he says, raise your right hand. He said, I don't believe in God. I'm not raising my right hand. He says, raise your right hand. He said, I want to do it. I'm not raising my right hand. He says, well, then raise it. Honest to God. He said, if you said honest to God, you can raise your hand. Raise it. Raise it. Yeah. Maybe it's a long-winded way to say that's as much reality as you think we have in things. We got a lot of things to use and still a long way to go. But false hope, I'll never forget that. This man couldn't care less. He said, what are you going to do to me? I've been up there for 7 years. I don't care anymore. You don't mean anything to me. He said, right to the judge, no, you, nobody else. Fuck you. That's my essay on hopeless.
There you go.
No, it's not I haven't got to my jokes yet.
When you got back from the service, did you go right into theater, or what got you into theater? I mean,
what got me into theater were these things. Girls.
Yeah, plenty of them in the theater, doggone it.
When I came back, I only had 1 year of high school. And I had nothing to contribute to society. I had no profession. I never dreamed of being an actor. So somebody said, well, civil service is giving veterans top priority. So I went down and I got a job oiling the check-making machines for the beneficiaries and sweeping the floors around the check-making place. Then they raised me up in civil service. Oh, God. Jesus Christ. It's a Jell-O made out of cancer, for Christ's sakes. It's so slow and moving, and it's so politics, everything. Anyway, then finally I was elevated to where I could work the machines and file. You want to go crazy? They got a carton this long, that wide, and it's all the pension checks people have gotten returned. And you have to file. You put this thing on, and you go into this tomb they call the vault, right? And you go in there, and you're there. Anyway, we noticed all the girls disappeared twice a month on Thursday nights. So the guys got together and said, what the hell's happening on Thursday night? Every fairly attractive lady, whatever it is busy. And they found out, because this was the Office of Dependents and Beneficiaries, they had 4,000 employees in one square block in Newark, New Jersey, huge building. They had organized a theater group. All of us suddenly decided acting was our destiny.
Yeah.
And we descended like vultures, boy, really. And tried to get lucky with the girls. And then one day the fatal words came. I had done one or two little my first, I would want to see this. My first play was a thing called Helena's Husband. And I played the King of Troy. And if you think my father, the Caliph, was bad, the king is dead and the queen is in the tomb. Boy. But nevertheless, she said, you should take it serious. I said, you're joking. What are you talking about? These are the golden people. When my family was together, if I took out the garbage and dried the dishes, I got the money to go to a matinee movie on Saturday. What are you talking about? Well, I said, I think you should. Well, then I begin to think, well, wait a minute. I have to be educated. I have to learn. I haven't got the money for that. This is amazing. I had forgotten about the GI Bill of Rights. You know what I'm talking about, the GI Bill of Rights? And she said, well, how long were you in the service? I said, 4.5 years. She said, you got 4 years of GI Bill of Rights. You can go any school you want to.
Where'd you go?
Well, first of all, I said, you're looking at an actor, darling. I found out I get $85 a month. And all I had to do to somebody said, what's your profession? I'm an actor. Which is sad because it's one of the curses that actors carry. You notice today in our society, you pick up a dope pusher, a prostitute, or somebody who's strung out or something else. What's your profession? Say, I'm an actor, I'm an actress. That doesn't help us very much, you know. So I decided, well, I'm going to go become an actor. And I heard at the New School of Social Research, they had a dramatic workshop, 44th Street, which had a good reputation. And the head of it was a genius. We didn't know it. Erwin Piscator, who was one of Germany's great theatrical geniuses. He brought to the theater the turntable. He brought back projections, the use of movies, long before any of us. And there he was stuck because the communists wanted to get a hold of him and the Nazis wanted to get a hold of him. And here's this genius stuck with these 22-year-old idiots going around trying to go to bed with a girl and saying, I'm an actor, baby. Hey, sweetheart. And I didn't realize that till later, what that man must have gone through. But I did get something from him. I got the, he had, that's the way he spoke. He was just, that's the accent I use when I do a German. Except he had another thing which I haven't found the right part for, but he used to say, well, darlings, no, you can't do it that way. But he did teach me. He said, you have to remember the theater is a cathedral, and you put your shoes outside. And he was very good at introducing respect for the theater and acting. I'll never forget him, you know. Anyway, we all went over there. Harry Belafonte was going to be an actor. All these, Marlon was a year ahead of me. All sorts of things. And I was having a good time, and then the terrible thing happened to me. I fell in love with it. And I went the other way. And when you're young, you got to be careful. I tried to make my whole life out of acting. You cannot do it. As I said to a woman I knew once who was married to, who was very ambitious, I said, you can't kiss a script goodnight, darling. It doesn't work. But at that time when you're young, and then also you have this other thing called pure. I must be pure. Everything must be dedicated to my profession, right? I got a story about that, too. Anyway, so that's how I got into it. And then television was just beginning.
Right.
And this is ironic. I did 3 different roles a month, maybe. I'm not talking about how good or bad. But do you realize that's the closest we ever came to a national repertory theater? Right. It's a bit ironic, isn't it? It's the only place you're going to do 3 different roles a month. Anyway, I started to get lucky. And then came Marty, Pat HIFC's Marty.
Wow.
And we did it, and it was difficult because we were getting the pages every day. It wasn't finished.
Right.
The last day, just before, 3 hours before we shot, we got the last 4 pages. And this is live television, folks. You don't come back Tuesday and fix anything. And we didn't have many people looking at us at the time, maybe 30 million, you know, small amount.
Right, small house, yeah.
And again, this brings me to something else about acting. If you can use the fear that terror brings to you because of the fear of failure. If you can channel that energy, you got a source of energy the most is inexhaustible. I mean it. You know, and that's what I think separates a lot of the actors from actors. I don't know an actor who is really what you might call. See, I think certain actors are, I call them mobile poets. They do their poetry with their voice, their move, their eyes, their souls, their things, their sorrow, their pain, their joys, their memories, their hopes, their desires, or what have you. And of course, to do that, it puts you in connection with something else with which you couldn't do it without. Your individual voice to the world. I'm not talking about speaking voice. I'm talking when they talk like a poet, he has his voice. And it took me a year and a half to learn how to talk on the stage. Because I had great imagination. I did things that were ridiculous. My classmates were stunned. And his teachers always said, that was wonderful. I'd like to see you do it. And I said, well, who the hell do you think that was up there? He says, no, that wasn't you. That's what you thought you were. That's what you wanted to be. And I didn't know. And he said, I'd like to hear your voice. So one day I'm saying, now look, Charlie, I want to tell you something. You tell that son of a bitch And I heard my voice. I heard my voice. Better voices, greater voices, lesser voices. My voice. Then I begin to understand, because that's the terrible thing about anything, especially acting. You cannot understand the intellectualization of acting until an experience hits you between the eyes. I said, that's what they meant, my voice. And how that happens different ways to different people, you know. Anyway, where are we?
Well, we're moving right along here, I think.
Huh?
Yeah, I think we're moving right along.
We're moving right along.
Yeah.
All right.
You studied with...
Oh, I got to tell you one
Okay.
more thing. You had your chance.
You're right.
You
I
had
blew
your
it.
chance.
Yeah.
You got to get
snooze,
in
you
there.
lose. Yeah, you're right.
I remember, this is another thing I pass on to you folks, and this is something that changed my life, and you can use it professionally, and you can use it even more importantly personally. During the 50s in New York City, if you didn't go to a psychiatrist, you were sick. That was it. You had to be able to say, my doctor's better than your doctor, sweetheart. I'll tell you, how many visits do you? I go 5, baby. To your lousy 2. You know. So I'm sitting with my analyst, and I say to him, I don't know, the first time I went, which was interesting because I wouldn't call it anything but a visit. I said, this is my first visit. You'd have to kill me to say session. Visit means I can depart. It's just a visit, right? So I said, I don't know what to do. I'm worried about, I must be free. I must be free to create. I must be free to walk. I must be free to talk. I must be free to dream. I must be free to carry on the wings of my imagination. I must be free, free, free. And here, this is, I pass on to you, a phrase that changed my life. I even think of it today. He said, that's fine, but you be careful you don't become a slave to freedom. I looked at him, I didn't know what to say, because he pinned me to the wall. And the only thing I could say is, what time's the next visit? Yeah, that phrase, and there's another one. I had an old Russian teacher, my first teacher in the drama school, named Rikan Benari, who worked with the Habima Theater and also worked with Stanislavski. And you had trouble with him. He talked this way we have to do. So what do we have to do? I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Anyway, but he taught me enthusiasm. And he taught me another thing which gives you a phrase that I still use today. Acting or life or what happens. I had a scene in the class where I pick up a telephone and answer it. Idiot me, I said, there's got to be another way to pick up a phone. Pick it up, you put it down, you pick it up, you put it up. There's got to be another way. Now, this is a lesson. An actor's got to know a little bit about everything. I didn't say jack on no trades, but history, entertainment, dance, ballet, painting, is whatever. And I thought of Will Rogers. What the hell has that got to do with the telephone? The lariat. You understand? So idiot me, I pick up the wire on the phone, and I go like that. I'll show them how to answer a phone, baby. Right? I go like that, and I catch it here. I couldn't catch that phone if my son's life depended on it. Well, they thought that, I mean, my God, here I was. Shalyapin had come back, for Christ. Salvini, right? And they were stunned, and I was, of course, very pleased with myself. Which is not hard for me to be. Anyway, what happens is that it's all over. Now, he had a couple of words he used, and if he said them first, he says, that was very theatrical. Dead for a ducat, right? He said, but muzda da dana нужна. That was Russian. It sounded like that. I'm sure that's not accurate, but that's how I remember. Muzda da dana нужна. This I pass on. This the other phrase that I have saved my life, acting and personally many times. It's possible, but not necessary. Wow. And I started to use that like I was going to make a date. I said, well, is it possible? Do you have to have, no, is it possible? Is it, no, don't make the date. Don't go to this place. Don't read that book, Muzna. And in acting, I use Muzna. I mean, I don't talk about it, but like when you kind of, in acting, you clean up a part. Say, well, that's good. That was very good, but this Muzna, I don't need it. I don't need it, you know. So those things, slave to freedom, and possible but not necessary, changed my life, those two phrases. Next.
My turn?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to ask you about studying with Strasberg. You spent some time with Strasberg, did you not?
That's wrong, man.
Yeah? You don't want to talk about
Lee
that?
Strasberg was a brilliant teacher for the beginning, the principles. And I was at the studio and I was with him, but that's as far as it went. And I used to fight at the studio saying, Lee, we got to divide the studio into groups. You got some of us sitting here for 5 years and you're doing principles no matter what you say. And we heard it. And everybody's so afraid of him, you know. And he was very good for basics. But once you knew the basics, where was the help in learning what characterization means and how justification is probably the most important thing, and how the actor, who is a great actor, has a way of justifying things with such imagination. That's what makes him great. We never got into that. We had the words. Why am I here? What am I doing? What do I want? What's the play about? What's the spine of the play? What's the spine of the scene? What's the situational adjustment? What's our personal relationship? Now, those things are good when you're in trouble. No, because then it's like, that's technique. You don't need a technique if you don't get in trouble. But there's not a person living who doesn't. I was doing something, a narration, and it was for some charity in New York on radio, and it said the great Hudson River in the moonlight glistened like flowing diamonds. And I thought but something bothered me. And I said, wait a minute, put somebody else on the other side of the microphone. And I said to him, the great Hudson River flowed like diamonds in the moonlight. I was talking. The other one I was narrating, making up this voice. We always want to impress. We always want to be loved. We always want to be accepted. And I don't care how many times you've been acting, you're going to slide right back into it every once in a while. And that's these things, you can only make a mistake to learn something, to really understand it. And that's the one benefit that I owe to the Actors Studio. I used to do a scene there. I was going to the Actors Studio, the American Theater Wing, and the Dramatic Workshop at the same time. I was on stage at least twice a month, sometimes 3. I was, through my actions, beginning to instinctively understand what intellectually I couldn't understand. You understand? I like the word understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's very important, Like I said about the voice, I said, now I know what he's talking about. That was me talking, Yes, sir.
Your career. Let's go back to Marty for just a second. That to me still stands out as just such an extraordinary piece of work.
Well, Marty, but I will.
What I'm getting at is that after that wonderful, was it Philco Playhouse? I think it was.
Philco, Goodyear, they were the same group. I think it was Goodyear.
And
Philco was one Sunday, Goodyear was the next.
Right.
And the greatest man I ever met in television, a guy named Fred Coe, he was the guy who was the producer. He discovered Chayefsky, he discovered Eli Wallach, Annie Jackson, James Dean. He discovered this guy was loaded.
There was
Drank
such
himself to death.
great work going on in television in those early days.
Because there were no rules.
Right.
Because no monetary being said, hey, we can make a lot of money with this. When they woke up to that fact, and Madison Avenue moved in at that time, suddenly you couldn't say this, you mustn't do that, you couldn't do this. But in the beginning it was free at the time because they were too dumb to see what a gold mine was in front of them. And once they did, they closed in.
When it came around to doing the film,
oh, well, that's...
that must have been...
I turned it down, I didn't like the material. I had a meeting with Burt Lancaster and Harold Heck. They were going to produce Marty. And they said, we want you to do Marty in the movie. And I was all excited. Also, one side of me said, I wonder why, since I made Marty, so you want to do it, but I didn't say that. And I said, okay. She said, you have to sign a 7-year contract. I said, I don't believe in slavery, my friend. Well, I don't know. Maybe for Marty, I could sign 7 years. But who's going to pick my roles? They said, we will. I said, forget it. I reserve the right to make my own mistakes. I am not going to walk down and see my friends on the street and say, well, I did that piece of shit for them because, I'm under contract 7 years. And my friends are going to say, sure, that's right, get the money, kid, get the money. So I lost it. Right. Not only that, but the rumors have gone around for years, and I believe it now. When they shot the film, my kinescope was on the set. That is not nice. You understand what I'm saying? The tape I did, the Marty they had on the set, well, they shut them
to reference it.
No, they were stealing from us.
I was trying to be kind.
It got nothing to do with Borgnine. I wish him luck. It wasn't his fault.
Could you talk a little bit about you know, some of the, let's go to, let's say, a film like On the Waterfront. What was the process of you auditioning for that, of getting the role, of preparing that role?
I'm going to correct you, which I'm wont to do. I never thought of this before, and I'm talking to myself too. Let us say what was the hope, and forget the word process. What was the hope we could do with this picture? I never thought of that, but that's true. I'm talking to myself now. Anyway, I had just done Marty, and I didn't realize what happened till Monday. After the Sunday we did it, I came out of my house. Ice truck went by with 3 guys, and the 3 guys yelled in unison, "What are we going to do tonight, Marty?" And I said, that was my cue. I don't know. What are we going to do? And a woman came by with a couple of poodles and said, "We're going to do tonight, Marty." I got to my little cafe. They gave me my corn muffin and tea, and the guy says, "What are we going to do tonight, Marty?" And I realized something had happened. Here's a show on from 1 hour out of 365 days. And what was it? The performances were good. But again, the unbeatable power of loneliness. This was a lonely guy, and everybody in the country who watched it had been lonely, and they were related to him, you know. I remember, I'll never get over that. That was really something. Now what?
On the Waterfront?
Oh, that. Oh, I'm sorry. I got lost in.
That's okay.
What are you porting Waterfront? See the pawnbroker.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Anyway.
We'll go anywhere you want.
Kazan says to me, where I'm at the studio on a Tuesday, he says, "What the hell did you do Sunday night?" I said, "I don't know. Nancy Marshall and I said we did this nice show." It was, well, Jesus, that's all I hear about. You go to Bud Schulberg. Bud Schulberg was a screenwriter and a novel writer. And tell him I asked him to read you for the part of Marlon Brando's brother in Waterfront. Well, I almost passed out. Well, first of all, I had just seen Brando in Streetcar 2 weeks before, which he was absolutely brilliant. And he was the white prince of the theater and everything. And now I'm supposed to go play his brother. I got a wee bit nervous, Anyway, I went and read, which was difficult. And I don't know how to say this. I don't mean this demeaningly or anything. But Bud Schulberg stutters. And it's not easy. He was reading the line. Well, he was reading, and naturally I didn't say a word. I'm not going to hurt the person's feeling, But I figured, I don't know, because whatever flow you had was kind of chopped up a little bit as it went along. Anyway, I got the part. Now we're doing Waterfront. Great cast. The end of the first day, I get in my car to go home, and somebody says to me, Kazan sold his friends in Washington a week or 2 ago. Well, this is like telling me my father slept with my sister. He was our father image. He was our God. You don't sell your friends just to make movies. Not my father. My father would never do that, But it was a fact. And Lee J. Cobb, who was my idol at the time. Anyway, that upset me a bit. Now we're shooting. And we come to if I see this one fucking scene one more time, I'll kill myself. Right? The cab scene in Waterfront. I'd like to dub it when somebody said, "What are you doing, Charlie?" I don't give a fucking shit what it is. You're not going to tell you. Go find your mother, you putz. So you've seen the scene. There's a two-shot of us in the cab, and there's a close-up of him and a close-up of me, and they edit it together. Now here's another absolute fact. Acting is reacting. That's the essence of it, reacting. So that means whatever stimuli you have for yourself mentally, whatever stimuli comes from the person opposite you, and that's the important thing at the moment, you need it. So we shoot the two-shot, and we shoot Marlon's close-up, and I'm off camera overacting and carry on. Not that he needed help, but that's what you do off camera, you know. I'm terrible off camera, especially I have an actor who's kind of lost. You know, he says, I don't know, how can you say that's his line? And he said, I don't know, how can you say that? I said, you're a fucking cocksucker. How can you say that? Print. Print, print, print. I caught him. You know what I'm saying? And anyway, I didn't have to do that with Marlon anyway. So anyway, we do it. The whole scene took 11 hours. We do it, and when I first get in, I'm a nervous wreck, and they say action, roll 'em, action. He said, what do you think of the Yankees? It's not in the script, but no, but he'll never improvise as fast as I can. But at that time, I said, I don't know, you know, I don't understand what you say. Well, yeah, what do you think of them? And when you're in a situation like that, you can actually say what you're thinking within the framework of the scene. I said, I don't understand you, which was true. Our father used to drag our ass to the Dodgers. In the script, we came from Brooklyn. And we ate hot dogs till we were sick. What the hell are you talking about the Yankees for? Cut. Now we start again. And he said, how's mom? Yes, Marlon, my boy. And I said, Mom's fine as far as I know. He said, you sure? I said, look, you take 10 cents, you put it in the phone, you dial 7 numbers, and you say, Ma, how are you? Cut. Until finally, I heard Kazan, who very seldom got angry with Marlon, says, stop the shit, buddy. That's what his friends call him, buddy. Stop the shit. Meaning, you know, we got to do the scene here. So we did it. Then it came my close-up, and I got everything, and I'm sitting there, I'm ready, and Gad said Marlon went home. Acting's reacting, right? Where the hell is my main stimuli? It's somewhere in a taxi going home. I could not believe it. I could not believe that Kazan allowed the actor to leave. I don't know who the hell he was. And I was so angry at that time. I said, listen, we've done this damn thing about 11 hours. I'll play the taxi, I'll play the driver, I'll play his part, I'll direct the fucking scene, and I'll do my part. And I did one take, and I went home. But I never forgot that. That's the lowest of the low. I can't think of anything else you could do to try to throw an actor or make him appear not as good as he could be.
Did you ever call him on it later?
No, well, 44 years later, I never saw him again, you know. Yeah. And I wasn't looking either. And 44 years later, I'm in a Chinese restaurant in Montreal, and I have just received the day before one of these Lifetime Achievement Awards, which simply means bonsoir. It's over. Bonsoir. So I'm sitting there, and at the awards, a telegram comes. And it's from Brando, and it is so effusive. And the vocabulary is unbelievable. One of the kings of the cinema or some crap like that. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, the next day I go to this Chinese restaurant, and I'm sitting there, and who comes in with a group of people but Marlon? Now, I'm sitting there saying to myself, well, Jesus, I don't want to be as shitty as he was. I've got to say thank you for the telegram. I shouldn't say a word. Yes, you do. You do. You're not him, you're you. You go over there. So I went over and I said, Marla, oh, Rod, baby, he said. And he rubbed our bald heads together, which must have been a Tahitian greeting. I don't know what the hell that was. He rubs our heads together, said, how are you? And I said to him, I'm sorry, you sent the telegram. He said, why? I said, because now I can't say too many shitty things about you. He didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Oh, yeah, it's nice to see you. I said, nice to see you. That was it.
That was it.
Well, what I like about it is 44 years later in another country in a Chinese restaurant. That sounds like a bad writer, doesn't it? Where's this scene take place? In another country, in another time, in a Chinese? No, we'll make it a delicatessen. I never forgot that. But I was lucky, you see, because I came along, I was a new talent in a new medium called television. And I was lucky that I had ridiculous, or maybe courage fostered by terror. But I took chances on live television. I mean, the directors went crazy with me. Because they say, well, what are you going to say here? I said, I don't know till I get there. And they said, this is live television. This guy's telling me he doesn't know till he gets there? What? An actor should never know how he's going to do it. You got to know everything else, why, what, and all that. And I must say, you had to have guts on live television to do that because there was no reshoot, there was no going back. We'll fix that up in the next shot. And a couple of times, I remember at the end of Marty, I go to the phone booth to call the girl. I put 10 cents in. I dial 7 numbers, making sure there's 7. And I don't know what the hell I'm calling her for. Now, nobody knows this, but the actor goes about 300 million miles a second inside your head. And then I learned another lesson. Never mind the line. What do I want from her? Big, important point. Because we all act scripts as if the world was giving them the week before we did them. And they don't get them. And that gives you a certain sense of freedom. So I, in my way, work my way, and I'll, especially in movies, paraphrase and change, never the cue, never the thought, but because you can become so static in movies by repeating, if you have to come in, I say, come on and sit down, take the chair over there. And then I say, take 2, I say, come on. What's the thing there? What is that?
Biz?
Yeah.
Yeah. Global Rule 1 pin.
It's very fancy. Come on, sit over here.
Over here.
Now, you can only do that in actors like a racehorse. If you've run 7 races out of 10, you might get away with it. Don't try to do it when you've only run 2 races. They'll kill you. Because what happens, you know you're doing all right in your career when finally you say, somebody says, well, what? And they say, let's see what he's going to do. That's about as close to freedom as you'll get. Let's see what he's going to do. Up till that time, there's another Marcus here. How about Sabbath? Anyway, that's it, isn't it? I'm not finished. I mean, if I covered it.
No.
I don't know what he wants. Did we cover the waterfront thing?
Yeah, I think so. You want to move on? Should we move on?
No, anything you want.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm here.
I'm going to just keep
I'll talk
plugging
you
away
to death.
here.
It doesn't bother me. Huh? I enjoy carrying on.
Just a second. So
What?
He wants to get to the audience questions, and we'll get to those in just a second.
Who wants to get there?
And one of the audience members right over here.
We haven't got to the audience question
Yeah,
part
it's
yet.
coming right up.
What is this? What's your question?
No, hold on.
In the heat of the night, when you were
Yeah.
preparing for the role, did you feel a lot of pressure concerning that role, and also how did you prepare for it?
In sheer terror, no. Well, that comes back to the Navy and my friend Mr. King and his southern accent. Also, there was a special quality in our relation. I knew Sidney for about 8 years before we did the movie. So that took care of personal relationships, took care of everything. The most difficult time we had in that picture had to do with where we were shooting it. We went down, we were only three days in Tennessee. Now, I didn't know Tennessee had been divided in half. Half it fought for the North, half it fought for the South. I mean, there must be some interesting stories down there in some families somewhere. Right? But we went to the side that fought for the South, and they didn't say anything. But when they served us, they put it, I mean, this doesn't work, but you know what I mean, they slammed it down on us. Didn't say a word. Now, I said I'd do the picture with Sidney on one condition, that our suites were adjoining and the doors between the suites were open, because I was looking for trouble. No, I thought there was going to be some trouble. And one night it came in the strangest way. It was a pouring rain. There's a knock on my door. I get up. I open the door, and there's an 18-year-old kid, whiskey on his breath, crying, with a double-barreled shotgun pointed at me, and he said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Steiger, I got to find my wife." I said, "Holy Christ. If Sidney's with anything in the next room." Oh, I hope so. Maybe he won't see the door. So you go through the closet, you go any place you want. And they apologize. This was an acting exercise. This guy cried and apologized for 20 minutes. I don't see anybody could do that, right? And he's all right, and I get him halfway out the door. He says, "Where's that door go?" I said, "That goes into Mr. Portier's room." "Well, I got to go." I said, "Okay, let me go in and wake him up, all right?" Now, I'm going towards his bedroom. I'm saying, "Sidney, be alone. Jesus Christ, be alone. It doesn't make any difference if it's black or white or tan or green. Be alone." And he was alone, thank God. So I wake him up. And I said, "Sidney." He said, "What?" I said, "There's a guy with a shotgun here." He woke up. Yeah. Now we're up, both standing in our boxer shorts, and this kid's going through his room and still apologizing, but the gun is shaking more than his fingers are on the trigger, you know. I said, "Holy Christ." Finally, he left. That was the weirdest thing. And he wasn't interested in black or white. He was looking for his wife, you know, 18 years old. A lot of people down their lives are finished 17, 18. They have 2 children already. No real income. That's terrible. But by and large, we did all right. And oh, yes, and after that, the next day I said, "We're going to shoot." They said, "No, we're not going to shoot today. We're going to go back to Illinois." They had cut a day on the location. And I said, "Sidney is having trouble concentrating because his mind is on survival. He's too tense. We got to get him out of here." And that was really, we went to Illinois because I don't know how he did it in the first place, the first 2 days, you know. So that was a problem we had down there. The nicest scene in that picture, I think, is the 2 of the men when they're in the sheriff's house. And what happened was we went to shoot, I don't know if you remember the scene, we went to shoot the scene, and the house we were in had a tin roof. These are things the public doesn't know about movies. And all of a sudden we hear, it started to pour rain and hit the roof. It sounded like machine gun fire and everything. So the sound man said, "We can't shoot it," and Sidney, I didn't want to loop it. So Norman Jewison, who's a very fine director and a great guy, said, "All right, we'll wait. That's all. We'll wait. It's an important scene. We'll wait." So we're all sitting in the car. This is how movies are made. And I'm sitting there, Sidney, and I said, "You know, Norman, I don't think Sidney and I are too fond of this scene the way it is." Norman says, "Yeah, I don't know." Sidney says, "I got to tell you, I don't like it." And Norman, who's very good creative, you know, you didn't shut him. So what are we gonna do? So we improvised the scene in the car. And when it stopped raining, we came back in. We used some of the scene, we came back in and shot it. Now, a funny thing happens in that scene. I'm talking to Sidney, and I don't hear myself say it, but I do say it. I said, what are you talking about, boy? And Sidney says, don't call me boy. Now, I knew we had to come out even in that scene in the audience's eyes. And I'm going crazy while we're doing the scene, trying to figure what can I match for his boy that makes me equal. And I don't know how I did it, but I said, all right, wait a minute, I said to him, don't you pity me. Don't you pity me, because he was talking like down to me and was feeling sorry for me. So we came out even. It was a lucky break, you know. Thank God for the tin roof. But that's how really good movies are made. But again, you got to have professional people with professional experience and the ability to improvise and the ability to take a chance, you know.
Did you have a sense that once you had finished the film that you had completed a really important work? What did you think?
No, that's a bunch of bullshit when people say, oh, I think I'm doing something great. I say, really? Hang on to it, kid. We knew it was a good film. We never thought of it, and that's another thing that would have been bad. Had we begun to think of it from a social aspect, it might have affected our work and human behavior. Right. No, we would have got like pedantic and intellectual and stuff like that, you know. Which reminds me of a famous story of Vakhtangov, who was a great Russian director and one of the great pupils of Stanislavski. I take for granted you know who Stanislavski is. Anyway, they both directed the same play in different theaters. Mm-hmm. This is a lesson in acting that I learned from this. The man's dying of cancer, the main character. The first act, he comes on stage. Stanislavski's, the curtain went up, somebody calls his name, and he comes on stage. This man looks green with pain. You can almost smell the disease. And he gets the pain, and he sits down and his daughter comforts him. In Vakhtangov's production, the guy calls his name, this 6-foot redhead comes through the door, like King Kong. And he's laughing and joking. Suddenly, he grabs his stomach, falls over. They put him on the couch, and his daughter lays on top of him with a pillow to press into his stomach, and somebody says, cancer. Get it? Oh, obviously. Counterpoint. Counterpoint. That was more impressive. That's what a lot of, I love actors who do King Lear. How old can they get when they start so old in the beginning? Guy comes on in the beginning and it goes off at the end. I hope to do a movie of Lear if I can get somebody interested. And in my terms, when he comes on stage, this guy just come back from a battle. I'm going to have platform shoes. He's going to be about 6'2", and his voice and everything is great. And by the end of the King Lear, when he has been disappointed by the absence of love in some of his children, and he's sick and worn out, and that's another thing I would do. This guy gets sick, you see him throw up almost on the stage, you know. Then you have, I think Aristotle said tragedy is the demise of a king. And you have this king figure, and then you watch him go, and that's tragic. But if he comes on gone already, maybe brilliantly done, but I don't think it'll grab you as well, you know. And he might steal my idea. Next.
Okay. Let's go on to audience questions. It seems folks are ready for that. Where's Kathy Ito?
Hi, good evening. What were some of the obstacles you had to overcome to reaching your goals in the business?
You're going to have to tell me what you said.
What obstacles did you face and overcome to be successful in the
An
business?
alcoholic family. And that's the truth. That's the truth. My family, I was on my own, I was about 10 or 11. And the thing that is most important is somehow you preserve what is your concept. Well, that's wrong. Already I'm wrong with the word concept. Somehow you preserve your individuality, whether it's in a love affair or in a scene or in business, that you are you, be thy own self, be true, and all that stuff in Shakespeare. Now, what happens is people forget. When you first start in anything, you have an image of yourself. We're getting back to the voice of the actor in that, right? Oh, how good to see you, Charles. And finally, when you work through that, that's what I'm trying to tell you, it takes time for you to discover yourself. And I have to tell you, the frightening thing is nobody is going to discover it but you. Because the instinct sense of truth, if you have it, if you're not, too narcissistic, not that I would be narcissistic, but anyway, that's the important thing. How do I use what is me? And I hate that thing because we went through the me period, Also, I have other ways of looking at that. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah?
Thank you very much.
You're fired.
Where's Theo? This is a tough one. Asmakopoulos? Is that right? Was that close?
Mr. Steiger, how are you this evening?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
Mr. Steiger, it's my pleasure, and my first, the question is, and you've already gone over a little, is it acting or personal growth that makes a great actor, or do they mirror each other? And can you expound on that in terms of your illustrious career?
Go, you have to tell me.
Read it back. Personal growth or acting? I mean, does one feed the other? Does one mirror the other?
There
Which
is
more
no
important?
growth in life in any category unless you have personal growth. I don't care if you're an actor or a bricklayer. No, there is none. Can you imagine being born and that was it? I don't mean physically. No, and that's why, I said before, I took over an acting class from, I don't know if I told you this story, Ben Ari, the man I took, did I tell you when I took over his class because they
No.
couldn't pay the rent? I got this call from his wife, and he was my first teacher. I hadn't seen him in 15 years. So I came in. I had a poem by E. Cummings, something from Shakespeare, something from A.E. Housman, an article from Life magazine that told how each champion athlete prepares for the day of the big race. As best replicas as I could find of Cézanne, Van Gogh, and Rembrandt. Two of the best jokes I could think of. Claire de Lune, Beethoven, and all that. And it took about an hour and a half for me to get through all of them. And then I shut the book and I said, now I'll tell you something. If none of this touched you, get the fuck out of this room. Get out of this room, my friend. That's what I mean. An actor's got to have a little bit, he doesn't have to be an expert. Excuse me, it's the heroin. Anyway, you have to be aware and you have to know these things and you can never let them out of your life. Notice the one thing I skipped naturally because I hate it is the ballet. It's all right, Charlie Chaplin hated the ballet. I spent 10 days with him at his house.
Thank you, Theo.
Huh?
What kept you going through hard times as an actor? Was it a need to act?
Well, those words are need to act. Everyone has a different reason, basically. I didn't find out till later that one of the reasons I worked so hard, and I never dreamed of being famous or anything, was because I was going to get respect for the name of Steiger, which was shit upon in the neighborhood that I lived because of the alcoholism of my mother, because dragging her out of saloons, because children laughing and everything else. Somewhere down inside of me, I said, I'm going to do something good enough. You are not going to laugh at the name Steiger again. That's what got me through, but I only discovered this, 6 years ago or something. I said, Jesus, I wanted to have respect for the name. Also, let me put it from another rather crass point of view. 0.000001 work at something they love to do in the world. I know it's tough to make a living sometimes, but to make a decent living at something you love to do, you are the smallest minority on the face of the earth, and don't think you're not. But you think of millions of people in poor, I'm so lucky.
Thank you, Theo. Don Huser, it looks like. Don?
I'm from New Jersey as well, and I escaped
I
from there
spotted
as
that
well.
when I came in.
I thought you
No,
did.
I did, the halo.
No, it was the hair.
Jersey
Usually
halos
it's-
blink.
Ah, okay. Usually it's the teased up hair.
Okay.
But my question was, do you prepare differently when you're doing a historical figure, someone's real life, than you do for someone that's fictional?
The worst thing you can do is to think it's different. The worst thing you can do. The problem with historical figures is you have to find something that is so human that the public can identify. By that I mean, when I did Napoleon, Good, Bad, or Indifferent, I was trying to figure First of all, I'm the only man that ever played Napoleon. I'm very proud of this. You never saw me put my hand inside my jacket. Once. They were begging me, we want to take a picture. I said, no, it becomes a cartoon. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that. But I went through Malmaison and I went through the museums, because I don't fool around. I read so many books that, I didn't think it existed anymore. And that's another thing. You read as much as you can, and all of a sudden, when you begin to get a conflict, you got to shut them and say, well, out of this, I'm going to make my Napoleon. Because if you keep going, you're going to get all screwed up. It's too much research, Anyway, they take me through with great fanfare, and they have these tables, glass top, with objects in them like a museum. And there was my saving grace, a pair of glasses. If he has to wear glasses, he's a human being. He got a weakness, So I was very, very happy with that. Also, which I think maybe in my interpretation, there was something I used a lot that I don't think many people did. He never saw his son. The Princess Valjeska, whatever her name was, never let him see his son. And that would move me a great deal in scenes where I had to be moved. I've never seen my father. See, you can mix these things up. I could understand the feeling of not seeing somebody supposedly close to you. And then I wrote a couple of scenes, and then there came a misfortune. The European version is longer, and I hear much, much better than the English version. And the English version has been bungled a bit because De Laurentiis, who had 3 years at Cinecittà in Rome, the film school, decided he was going to edit the picture personally. When I heard that, I said, that's it. Holy Christ, I'll kill him. Anyway, that's what happened. But shows you how things can help you. I was reading about some Roman emperor or something. And they asked him something, and he gave him an answer. And I put that in the movie. And I wrote the scene where my assistant comes in, La Bedouillère comes in, and he sees me writing. He said, "What are you doing?" And Napoleon, who was an agnostic, said, "I'm writing a letter to the Pope." And his aide can't believe it. And he says, "How can you do that?" He says, "Listen to me. You conquer a nation with an army, and you sustain it with its religion." Smart. Oh, smart, right? So I put that in, you know. They almost took that out. Then I had a lovely scene at the end of the picture I had where they're going through the stagecoach, and he gets out, and I wanted to make this. I couldn't bring around Earth any more than this. It's going to sound funny. He goes behind a tree to go to the bathroom. That's it. If they don't believe he's human by that time, I'll become a ski instructor or something. I don't know what the hell to say. And then he comes back, and he says, "What day is this?" And we cut to all the different officers. This guy just lost the biggest battle of his life, and he don't know what day it is? And somebody says to him, I think it was April 12th. Wow, he said, April 12th. April 12th. Oh, April 12th. And suddenly he throws his arms up and he says, "La Badouillère, I want my son." Cut. Out of the picture. I go to the bathroom, my bed, and I get in the stagecoach, they drive off. Wrong. It was a crime. It was a crime. And they cut all that out, you know. Not in the Russian version, I hear, you know. By the way, Sergei Bondarchuk, who directed that picture, was a very nice person who was also a wonderful actor. Better actor than a director. If you saw the Russian War and Peace, I mean, the American War and Peace looked like they made it in Disneyland. I got to tell you something else. In New York City, I don't know, up in the 80s, I think it's 7th Avenue, there was a theater called the Thalia Theater. And every summer, they had a festival. But their festival was 2 great pictures every day. And you could tell people who were interested in acting, because by the end of the summer, we were walking around with red bull's eyes saying, you know, I've sat there, the great actors, Harry Bauer, nobody knows who I'm telling about. Ray Moo in The Baker's Wife. Jean Jouvet, the greatest film I think maybe made, Children of Paradise. Jean-Louis Barrault. If you haven't seen these, you must, as actors, go to the store and get them and see them. Not to copy, not to imitate, but to see what beauty and things can be done and to educate yourself. You know. We lived there, and I'm sure it influenced us in many ways. Next!
I have to ask one more follow-up question about Napoleon. My researcher tells me that you actually got a copy of the autopsy of Napoleon.
Yeah, I wanted
Why?
to know. I wanted to know what he was like. That's true. I sent to Chicago, And they sent me a copy. They were so nice, they translated it in English for me. This is another thing that I used. This man was so sick, it was ridiculous. Ridiculous. In fact, I put a little scene in the picture, but I don't know if anybody knows it. The day of the battle, he's sitting in a chair, and I have a guy come in and hand him a glass of water and a pill, and he takes it. You know. I didn't want to go, but that was part of it. And the night before the battle, I am convinced there was a thing called laudanum, which was like old-fashioned sleeping pill and painkiller. I'm convinced the night before that battle, he was in such pain, he took one, even when he knew he shouldn't. Because the next day, I read the description of the officers around him that morning, from colonels to corporals to other generals. And I noticed there was one word I never saw before describing him. It says, His Majesty seemed hesitant. His Excellency seemed hesitant. The Emperor seemed hesitant. I said, he's not clear-minded. He was in a lot of pain. I mean, what makes him suddenly? Because he wasn't the type of man that was afraid to go to war, you know. I had 1 year of high school. I got a fantastic education by becoming an actor. Number one, I think, because my favorite reading is biographies. But number two, in researching for a part and stuff like that. Even Al Capone, I got the newspapers of the period. I got what I could find out all the way through, a few of the newsreel things on him and stuff like. By the way, I got to tell you a story about that. I don't know how many saw Al Capone, but anyway. You know who he is.
Right.
Jesus Christ, you can't remember, but Al Capone, yeah, okay. I'm at this party about 3 months after it's come out, and this man, a majestic man, about 6 feet some odd tall, comes in with a blue suit, silk shirt, lighter blue, dark blue tie, and wavy hair, beautiful wavy hair like Enzio Pinza, beautiful. And something's missing. Anyway, he comes over to me and says, Mr. Steiger, now you got to remember this is almost 30 years after Capone's dead. So I'd like to shake your hand, and we like what you did for Mr. Capone. And I said to myself, thanks God. Supposing they didn't like what I did for Mr. Capone, I would have been playing Toulouse-Lautrec for the rest of my life. Oh, it's fun now. Yes, sir.
Okay. Leslie McCaskey.
Do you have any other examples that you can give us as to little personalizations you did to build your character?
No matter what you're playing, it's happening to you. I don't care if your name's Napoleon, Julius Caesar, or Jack Smith. It's what's happening. It's happening to you. I mean, what makes a king is the people around him. You can sit there and say, give me a glass of water, and 14 people run for a glass of water. You know who the king is. You know. That's a big mistake some people make. I've never met an actor. I mean, who can act imperial? I don't understand. I mean, you'll act snobby maybe, I don't know, but it's always personal. Your work must always be personal.
Did you have
That makes sense to you?
Did you have any tricks or tips that you used for certain characters?
Any what?
She's looking for magic secrets and any
I don't
special
have any.
tips that you can offer.
Dustin Hoffman.
No, I can only tell you how you do it is you research the character as much as you can. You read everything about it. If it's a modern character, you search out and see if there's any newspaper articles. You find out if there's any newsreels. You read what you can. You read if you can find an analysis by one of the great psychiatrists on the guy, and when you're all done, you say, well, out of this, I'm going to make up mine. But it's all research and hard work, you know?
Thank you. Bill Welsh. Bill?
What was the difference directing from the 50s to today?
There's no difference in the good ones. None. But I will say it seems a lot of the best ones were actors first. They understand the problem of the actor. I would say there's a whole group who are contaminated by doing too many television direction. They get a film, all of a sudden you have to say, what are you doing, fellas? We need a close-up there. Oh, they got so used to doing just, you know, establishing shot, two close-ups, and out. You ask them to put down a track or something, they don't even know what the hell a track is. But the basic ones, no. The good ones I've worked with, now you have people who are great filmmakers like David Lean. I don't think David Lean could help an actor in trouble. But he's got such good taste. He knows when it's right for what he wants. And he acts, he has casts. Alec Guinness is going to have trouble. Ralph Richardson can't get out of trouble. Are you kidding? So he hires the best there is. He figures, well, they'll take care of that. You know? But you got to remember, David Lean once was the editor of the Evening News in London. They got the film at 5:30 and had to have it on the air by 6 o'clock. This guy became one of the best editors that ever lived. And editing, whether we like it or not, is the backbone of films. And editors do not get what they should. An editor has made more stars last for longer than they could possibly deserve. You got a guy you can't act, you got a drunk scene, you don't know how to do it, you say to him, look, do me a favor. Just come through the door. When you come through the door, I want you to sit down as slow as possible. I want you to rest, you're so tired. Just put your head in your hand. He comes through the door. He sits down, puts his head in his hand. Now, I put it together. He comes through the door, there's a cut to a clock. 5 after 3. He comes closer, he puts his head down, we go back to the clock. 3:15. We come back to him, and there's a wine bottle there by him. We go back to the clock, it's 3:30, we come back, and there's something dripping off the table on the floor. We go up the drip, see the bottle, and see him in back of the bottle, and go back to the clock. This guy gets an Academy Award for a drunk scene. True. It's true. If I ever directed a film, right next to me is an editor. Hello, sweetheart. That's the truth.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the kinds of pressures that you must have had to work under when you were doing live television. It just occurs to me there that you've got all the entrapments of the film business. You've got all the lights and the technicians
What it
and all
is,
that, but you're
I
doing
sum it
live
up
theater.
in this way. It's live television was an opening night, and you only had one chance. It's like an opening night on Broadway, and you only had one chance. I don't know how many of you have ever opened on Broadway, but believe me, you're not laughing 10 minutes before the curtain. You know, it's terrifying. Oh, I got to tell you, I did Rashomon. You remember the Japanese movie? Well, I did it as a play in New York, and I played the bandit. Opening night, I'm lying there. The bandit is discovered under a tree, sleeping with his sword beside him. And I had said to them, make sure we don't have a round thing, which we didn't. We had a little oval thing. So I'm lying there, the curtain goes up, I'm scared to death. I feel the cold air come in from the audience in the theater. and I hear balloomp, balloomp, balloomp. The sword rolls into the orchestra. And within 7 minutes, I have a sword fight. Somebody takes it, puts it up. Now, as much as I could improvise, I couldn't get out of that. I'm supposed to be asleep. And meanwhile, they're making their entrance. It was a beautiful production. Claire Bloom and this guy come on a white horse on a round table through rain. It was gorgeous. Oliver Messel. Yeah. He puts it back. I say, oh, thank God, balloop. Balloop. I said, this is not happening. No. Somebody puts it up 3 times. The 3rd time, Peter Glenville, the director, ran down the aisle of the theater and put it up, you know. How'd you like to start? And you haven't said your first line. You know. I think I got up in Japanese and said, on, you noble English. Wrong play, oh. And then another time, what actors go through is ridiculous. Here's a guy designs his set that is so gorgeous, and it's got the leaves and everything, but he decides to put the plant on spring wire. So he clips the ends off the spring wire, which leaves the equivalent of a stiletto. Ooh. I come through the plants, I got the scars to this day. It cut me, right? Then, well, but we did about the 180th performance. And this was the big problem. We started out with wooden swords covered in aluminum. 10 minutes in the first rehearsal for the sword fight, that went because what they could ka-ting, ka-ting, ka-ting. We got cavalry swords, they broke in half. You know, you block it. We got the Marine sword. In Philadelphia, that much of it went into the 4th row. We wound up with samurai swords. File down. Fabalagazza fango to file down. Huh? These things, if you let them drop, they go through the chair. Somebody said, oh, that's filed down. I don't want an unfiled one, baby. And I'm doing this fight, and I don't know what happened. I used to improvise before I went into the fight. But once you're into the choreography, you don't change it unless you go have a rehearsal someplace. So I'm saying, hayata, hataya, and then we go into the fight. And I always scared the bejesus out of this Englishman. 179 performances. Somebody made a mistake. I don't know if it was me or not. And I feel thunk. And right across, and the blood is pouring. And I'm on the floor at this time. Now we had another sword or whatever. Anyway, we had a way to get out of it, we thought. And I grabbed his legs, threw him on top of me, and I rolled him through the wired plants. Oh, there's no business like show business. Right? We stood up, we looked like the American flag, for Christ's sake. It was something. Oh, boy. And we had Oscar Homolka, Akim Tamroff, Claire Bloom, myself, and I don't know if you remember, you probably don't know who Oscar Homolka is. He had come up with this wonderful piece of beer. Sure, you're shaking your head at 94. He would, on one side of the set, there's these 3 guys, the older guys, who tell the 3 different versions of the same story. And Oscar had come up with this wonderful piece of business, which was, I couldn't believe the director let him get away with it. I thought Akim Timirov was one of the nicest guys and a good actor was going to kill him. And one night they have a little fight on the floor, and this was before Mike Tyson. And Akim bit his ear. And he came off the silly ass. He said, look what he did in my ear there. What do you do? What? Oh, my God, you know. show business.
Yikes.
The worst thing can happen to you in a play is to be with 104 fever, and you got to do the play. I had that happen. And David Susskind, who was known for his compassion at Schmuck, gave me a pill. He said, "You'll be all right." I did the entire performance. Everybody I looked at, including the sword fight, was like that. I'm serious. I couldn't straighten them out no matter what I did. And we got through, but, you know. But the biggest thrill in acting to me, what is this?
No, it's nothing. I made a move for a new question, but you weren't done yet, so.
I remember you when you worked with Edgar Bergen. Anyway. The greatest thrill is when you have a feeling and discover something for 1/10 of a second you never expected. Then you know what I call the narcotics of acting. You come off stage, somebody says, "What was that?" You said, "I don't know, but I had it. The audience didn't have it. You didn't have it. I had it." Now, the worst thing you do is try to repeat something, get it back. Forget it. Just thank God you have it. Maybe someday you'll have another moment like that, you know. I think what they call inspiration is the instant combination of intellectualism plus instinct at a split second. They come together and it's over. But something happens for that brushing that becomes your personal memory. That is no business like you. Go ahead.
Okay. Edwin McCready. There he is.
Mr. Steiger, how many auditions did you go through before you got your first major role, and was it any easier then than it is now, or to become successful as an actor?
It's never easier any time. You see, I was very fortunate because of television. My first picture was a picture called Teresa, where I played a psychiatrist in the Veterans Administration with Fred Zinnemann. And he had heard about my work on television. He had seen some of it. I didn't have to audition. I never had to audition. I think only a couple of times before I got lucky on television. Yeah, I think, oh yes, William Inge. Danny Mann's directing the play, the one with Shirley Booth. I'm trying to remember the name. Come Back, Little Sheba. And they have an athlete in there. And they asked us to come in our bathing suits. And this guy was rather fond of people in their bathing suits. And I came in, you know. And I did he said, wonderful reading, wonderful reading. I didn't get the part. This is the killer. Show you what an artistic group you live with in the theater. I said, because you always want to know why. I said, why did I get the part? What is it? He said you were too hippie. Hippie. My hips were too fat. I dared him to bend over in front of me. Just I never forgot that. I was too hippie.
Too hippie. It was way
You
before
win a
this-
hip, you lose a hip. What the
Yeah,
hell?
there you go. Where's Tanya Fowler?
With all of your experience in the theater, did you ever try musical theater?
You're kidding, Oklahoma. How dare you? And I did my own singing.
Over my questions and I changed it. I don't know how many times because I didn't want to ask
What
the
did she say?
stupid question.
She was trying so hard not to ask the stupid question. She changed the question a whole bunch of times, and still she asked the question.
You succeeded, darling. No, a lot of people don't know, but that was quite a while ago. That was a thing that saved me from getting really depressed because I just lost Marty. This is interesting, I had auditioned for Oklahoma 8 months before. I had heard nothing. So, you know, after the first week and a half, you say, tout à l'heure, you know. And the phone rings and said, this voice said, Mr. Steiger. I said, this is Fred Cinnamon speaking. I said, yes, sir. He said, you're going to do Judd in my film of Oklahoma. Well, you know. Now, this is the funny side. Very few people knew I studied acting, opera for 2 years before I became an actor. I had the best teachers in the world want to teach me for free. But I had no ear. I would change, I'd be going, Siva, Senor! And they said, what are you stopping for? I say, the piano plays, you change key. What the fuck is a key? I don't know what it. And I had to give it up, and I became an actor instead, thank God. My daughter, I'm happy to say, is an opera star, and I mean star in Europe. Covent Garden, La Scala, and all that, you know. But what a tough life. Oh, you gotta watch your diet, you gotta watch your throat, you gotta watch the climate, you gotta watch, holy God, it's ridiculous, you know. Anyway, where was I?
Oklahoma, but I think we covered it. I'm not sure.
So there's the ballet. And they're looking for somebody who looks as big as I do or heavy as I do from the back. And they go for 2 weeks, and Agnes calls me up, Mr. Mill, and says, we found somebody. I want you to come down stage 25 and tell me what you think. So I said, thank Christ for that, right? I go down stage 25, there's nobody there. I said, who? She said, you. I said, come on, Agnes, for Christ's sake. She said, can you count to 4? I said, 1, 2, 3, 4. She said, you'll do it. And when Agnes the Mill said, you'll do it, you did it. And I remember, thank God it was a clumpy thing. And at the end of it, I'm supposed to take Bambi Lynn, the dancer, who symbolizes Laurie, and I lift her up over my head, straight up, and I carry her by her waist away about 20 yards into the smoke. And in those days, they used beeswax smoke, my friend. You got 2 steps in it you could not see. Your throat started to close. Your eyes started to water. But like idiot actors, you kept going, right? 12 times. I was so frightened I'm going to drop this woman and break her leg. She'll never dance again, right? And the dancers were very kind. They said to me, which was the big trick I didn't know. You got to lock your elbows as soon as possible. Get them locked. You can hang on for a bit. But if you're like this, so long, you'll drop her, you know. And we did it. I never forgave Agnes for that. So I have to brag about that. A lot of people have done, acted a part, sang a part, and danced a part. But I have acted a part, sang a part, and done a ballet. Right. So much for Nijinsky.
Just came across the question with no name attached to it, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you.
Oh, this ought to be a zinger,
Yeah,
right?
I think so, yeah. No, not really. It's a real simple one, I think. What do you think has changed most about Hollywood since then and now?
Nothing except the new inventions that make things go faster. Greed hasn't changed. Adverts hasn't changed.
How about young producers?
Huh?
Younger producers that don't know about older actors.
Well, that's another thing. There are some who do, but the majority don't. You have to remember there's a big disease called television that came along. And a lot of people got into movies as producers and actors and what have you for television who really were not prepared. They could produce according to a list of figures, but they didn't know what to do as a problem. You know, a good director, a good producer, somebody can help a production when it gets in trouble without spending on more money. A good director, somebody can get an actor out of trouble. That's what I look for. Not that I get in trouble. No, I'm very kind to my directors. I say to them, "You what?" I didn't quite get that. No, I have very seldom had any trouble with one director only, who was brought in at the last minute because the director got sick on this picture I did with Schwarzenegger years ago. And I finally stood in front of him and I said, "I have to tell you, my friend, I could break your fucking head. I don't like you. I know you don't like me. We will never like each other. Let's get this goddamn thing over with. I want to go home." That is not the way to create, folks. I'll tell you that.
Sets the ground rules, though, doesn't it?
Huh?
Kind of sets the ground rules.
Well, he kind of toned down for a while, yeah.
Where's Bryant Krause? Bryant?
In Pawnbroker, how did it feel to take your palm and drop it down on the spike?
What about it?
Did it hurt?
Well, let me tell you about that. It was a funny thing. That was the scene I was most worried about people believing. And I practiced at home. I had the thing almost 1/8 of an inch in my flesh to get the feeling of the pain. And I practice and practice. Now we go to shoot it. And I'm kind of childish, you know. If I go over 3 takes, I want to know what's wrong here. You know, what the hell is going on with me? So I'm there, and I got it going, and it's going good, and they go away from the hand. As you don't see the hand. I'm supposed to be getting it through the hand. I'm doing great. I forgot to practice how to take it off. You understand? I didn't practice taking it off. And I didn't realize it until we're shooting. So there I said, Jesus, I can't look like an idiot. I look like an unprofessional schmuck here. He practices putting it on, but he doesn't practice taking it off. What a great actor, right? And I got it, and I remembered one of the habits I had when I was in pain, and it was just a simple thing. I had it there, and then I held my breath and got away with it. Thank God I thought of it, because I would have been so embarrassed. I mean, you know, here's an actor that does half a job. Aren't you glad to have him aboard, right? You know. Anyway.
You spoke earlier about the fact that there's nothing worse than losing hope. And I wonder if, I know that you struggled with depression for a good part of your life. I wonder if you could talk about what restored your hope and what brought you back and what that time was like to go through.
What kept me going was not to injure or disappoint my children. That was it. I don't want anybody say to my daughter, Anna, your father killed himself yesterday. Or my son, Michael, who I don't see much of, but he's only 8 or 9 now. But during that time, during the Depression, I wrote like a blank verse poem about that, which I described how I would kill myself. And I was interested when I finished the poem because, talk about social conditioning, I was worried about the mess I'd leave rather than my life. Figure that out. So I go out in this boat because I live by the ocean, And the gun, I lower myself over the side, I hold on the boat with my right hand, I keep the gun out of the water with my left hand, I put it in my mouth, I blow my brains out, I become fish food, and the boat floats away. I had it all figured out, you know. Anyway, outside of that, how'd you like to play, Mrs. Lincoln? Okay.
Family's important to you.
Well, a family is important to anybody because it can be either the greatest support, the memory of them, the actual presence of them, or one of the greatest detriments, the memory of their failure as a father or as a mother, you know. But again, you can use all this in your work, so to speak, which always sounds so shitty. Why'd you cut his throat? I want to use it in my work. I remember young actors, Jesus Christ. I remember this famous director I told you about, Erwin Piscata, the dramatic workshop. He said another thing I never forgot. He said, darlings, theater weeds out its own. And that's the truth. You got everybody want to be actors, and you look around for half of them 5 years later, they ain't around. You look around 10 years later, 3/4 of them are gone, and then you have us idiots who insisted on keep going, right?
What's coming up for you?
I'm going to do a picture in Wisconsin. It's like a murder mystery. It's what I call a money picture. It's nice. It's of no importance, you know. I have a picture I like that I did. I do small pictures mostly. Well, after I was sick, it was hard for me. You know, when I got ill with my depression, it didn't work almost 8 years, 8.5, 10 years. Then Gene Hackman and those guys, they took over. And they're hotter and bigger than I am at the moment. And I'm 77, I'm not going to worry about it. You know? But, so that's what happened there. But the less the budget, the greater freedom you have. You go to shoot a picture that's $2 million and you say, I'm coming through the door backwards, then I'll turn around. Fine. You're doing a picture that's $75 million, I said, do me a favor, Rod, please just walk through the door. Walk through the door! Walk through the door! And that's the truth. But the best parts, I don't care. If I like, see, here's another thing. A part is you go to a cocktail party, and there's this incredible woman there who absolutely floors you with her looks, her speech, her smell, her talk, her brains, her humor, what have you. And she draws you right into her. And she's called the part. The part chooses you. You don't choose the part. Say, I got to know her better. Oh boy, I want to have that. Let me have that. So the part really chooses you, you know.
Well, I know that everybody here hopes that they have 1/10 the good fortune in having great roles choose them as you have.
Thank you.
Thank you for being